Fantastic. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today for one of our latest, I guess, so we snapshot a little lunch and learn today. And as you can see, it's Dunbartonshire Chamber of Commerce Introduction to ChatGPT, because it's a hot topic of the last couple of months. I'm Damon Scott. I'm the Chief Executive of the Dunbartonshire Chamber of Commerce, and the idea of this session is really, everyone will have heard of it. I was lucky enough to have a lot of techie friends, so I'd heard about it a bit earlier, and then it absolutely hit every headline going as it's sort of rolled out over certainly I would say last 2 to 3 months. It's really sort of hit the headlines and become the sort of hot topic in terms of particularly some of the things that it can do, and the fast developing nature. Actually, some of the issues it's going to create with things like plagiarism and or difficult to identify plagiarism and education. But we're not here to particularly talk about that. That's the moral and ethical route that it's going is for others to consider. We're very much about, you know, just giving a wee introduction to ChatGPT, giving some examples of how people can use it on a very basic level to for their business, and to make it more efficient. And hopefully you'll know some of this stuff, and hopefully you'll, even if you pick up 1 or 2 things that will be of benefit to you. But I'm delighted that I'm joined today by Jill Wilson, one of our wonderful members from Buttered Host. So she'll be coming, I'll do a wee introduction, and then Jill will come in and talk about specifically sort of the useful web and digital side of things. So I'll just fire in, and we'll have an opportunity for questions towards the end. So you'll all have heard, you know, what is ChatGPT? It's obviously AI, artificial intelligence powered model developed by OpenAI, and I think the way they put it is generates human-like responses to text prompts, and there's multiple applications. It's generated through the amazing algorithms that these mathematicians and technical whiz kids produce to sort of move technology forward to provide much more of a natural sounding response, which is a big step on in a very short space of time. You'll have to forgive me, because when you're running Zoom, things cover all your sort of notes and stuff. So first of all, just wanted a quick outline of what it can be used for. Language translation is quite a key one. Obviously, we can do that through Google Translate, but with the ChatGPT, is a bit more user-friendly and a bit more discussive, conversational, I would say. So that's an absolutely key thing for sort of a lot of people. I'll mention some things we're not going to go into too much detail with. Obviously, you guys can research it further, and I would hope we will come back to the AI at a future date as things move on. But some of you may not know that there's a lot of chatbots being developed as well to use AI for very much automating customer support. One of the things that Jill might mention is the idea of sort of creation of web code and other technical code. The thing that I like is sort of ideas generation and development, which I'll mention in a bit. And also problem solving and solutions. I'll come on to that in a little bit, but you know, in terms of some sort of more complex calculations that it can help with. Again, some of these things you might recognize from Google, but I think there's a big difference with ChatGPT in terms of that sort of conversational and sort of more kind of focused solution. we've got this sentiment analysis. This is a big one where it can analyze a lot of text to look at the emotional tone of a message to provide sort of insights for businesses. I'll mention this later in terms of customer reviews, feedback, and comms. Research and data gathering. That's something I've used it for to sort of turn what could be hours of work through Google into one single form. I'll hopefully try and show an example of that in a bit as well. And summarizing text and maybe even rewriting text that you've already got, sort of thing is you can put a load of information in and get it to use it as a basis for whatever you want, basically, whether it's a blog article or even just a very short summary. And along similar lines, you know, the idea of if you give it the right instruction and references, content generation, or like I said, even rewriting existing content to refresh. So what are the benefits? I mean, the main one, increased efficiency and productivity, automating tasks and handling, you know, basic inquiries, allowing your team to focus on more complex issues. Huge integration and automation opportunities in terms of, I think I mentioned some of the customer experience elements, chatbots powered by ChatGPT that can provide 24/7 support, and that the customers can always have access to help. One that I came up with was sort of filling a knowledge or expertise gap and problem solving. And one example of that I have highlighted, going back to that sort of point before, was very much sort of you know, if you have a complex need for a spreadsheet, I use spreadsheets all the time, but I'm limited in terms, once it goes beyond maybe sort of you know, 2 or 3 elements, you know, in the calculation, I start to lose the will to live, sort of thing. But or it's maybe a bit beyond my expertise, and you get 3 different Google answers. So, you know, actually, you know, putting an instruction into ChatGPT is a very good way of generating that, and you can just cut and paste it usually. Touched on improving the customer experience, really, you know, having constant support and valuable quality support. We also touched upon the access to the insights and data in terms of the way it can analyze large amounts of text data and provide insights into customer sentiment and preferences. And I guess key to businesses is you know, reducing costs and resource requirements as well. You know, mentioned automating the tasks, and you know, it sounds a bit scary, but reducing the need for human sort of interventions and saving businesses time and money. So some practical examples. I thought we'd focus on some of the basic ones in terms of you know, and these are things that I, you know, have used it for, just to get sort of quick fixes. Articles, and that can, you know, range anything from a sort of news piece or something you want to send to the press, to blog, to web content, which you'll come on to shortly. You can get it to just social media posts or themes for your campaign, for instance, as long as you ask the right question. Some people may be less kind of, again, this is a bit where the expertise gap comes in. Some people may not be as used to that as others. So having something that generates some quick social media posts is really useful. And looking at themes, if you're looking at an ongoing campaigns, I'd probably choose. I used to do work as a marketing consultant for a range of businesses. So we had one that sounded quite difficult to start with in terms of dental practice, but we used to be able to research a load of stuff through, it was Google, so gathering from, you know, maybe 10 different areas, loads of different themes for a dental blog. So it'd be teeth whitening or reusing toothbrushes, or, you know, toothbrushing techniques, all sorts of things. But, you know, you'd probably have a multiple sources rather than a singular central resource for that. Proposals, it could be provide the basis for proposals if you give it the right information and references. And I'd mentioned the data gathering and research side of things, and hopefully we'll have a little look at a bit of an example of that shortly. Summarizing data, I'd mentioned how it can analyze huge amounts of text. And it's really useful, you know, if you want that just putting into a few paragraphs or even bullet points to pass on. This is, you know, time savings are fantastic. And then problem solving, I kind of mentioned there, you can pretty much ask it any question. And like I said, it's gives you much more of a focused response rather than because it's going to the 10 different websites and 10 different forums for you, sort of thing. And well, through its learning, it's finding those solutions. So best practice, I thought was a useful item, especially for these areas that I've mentioned, which are just sort of some of the basic areas that I've probably can say I've used the ChatGPT for, and I think some of the things that the main thing to think about, I guess, especially if you're it's almost like if you approach it as you would if you were having a meeting with a member of your team, you know, just ask, you know, how would you phrase an instruction to a team member or a colleague, I guess. And I guess the difference is sort of you know, you can sort of have this instantly. It's not a case of a 20-minute meeting to get the answer. I would say for some areas, the more you put in, the more you get out. You know, providing, it's like anything, if you want someone to do a job well, sort of clear, detailed instructions and brief, and providing references. You know, you can actually paste a you know, a web address in, and it can reference that if you want to give it some instructions. And you can I've put borrow in exclamation marks there, because you cannot just rewrite your own content, but you might want to go to competitors sort of website and grab some really good information and get it completely rewritten for your own purposes. And again, that's a matter of seconds to do that, rather than maybe an hour to rewrite it and trying to sort of get away from any plagiarism. And one really good thing is a wee bit that I would recommend, and kind of is somewhat different from the sort of straightforward Google, is that you can, I call it re-asking or refining or regenerating, having that conversational relationship with it. So if something is missing something that you wanted, you can, you know, get it to regenerate the content, or you can ask another question, or you can ask for something to be added in, or you can get it to change the focus. So very much about, you know, similar to speaking to a colleague or team member, but you don't feel quite as bad about it, and you don't need to be particularly polite. I have found myself occasionally putting please in, as if I've been typing to a colleague, sort of thing. But you know, it's a very, very, very quick sort of fix, really. And then I'm going to mention APRM resources, and that's a I would describe that as an add-on. I think I might mention it later, but it's you can get a plugin for the likes of Chrome, which gives you access to a community, and there are loads of articles and prompts already there that people have kind of designed and done a bit of work on to create very quick fixes. So that's a really useful resource for a lot of what we're going to be talking about. So if you're to do anything as a result today, have a look around and get the AIPRM bolted into your ChatGPT as well, because that's a really valuable resource. And I wanted to highlight some of the limitations and health warnings around it as well. So you do need to understand that it's not, don't take it as gospel. There is limited knowledge. The system's learning is based on its information up to September 21, and there can be bias in AI because it's ultimately put together by humans who put the parameters in place. So don't take it as gospel. Do sort of I guess sort of take it with a pinch of salt, and certainly don't sort of make too many brash sort of conclusions and judgments that you might be pulled up on. The information is it's always learning, and they're updating. It doesn't mean that everything's relates to 2021. As I said, you can put a current web resource in, but remember that the information is sort of drawn from online information. So as we know, that's not always accurate. And I've mentioned there a lack of creativity at the moment as well. So it is sort of drawing from existing information. So the creative side of things is probably something to be aware of. And then I guess it's about sort of, I would recommend that people just looked at the limitations in terms of the free version versus any paid versions if you wanted to do a bit more with it. So I think, for instance, you get you get one sort of tone of voice and style with it, and you can access more of those through the paid versions. And I certainly probably because I was sort of way back from a PR background, I wouldn't say it wrote the news articles in the way that I was traditionally taught to write them. So that was maybe something that I would pick up on. But maybe there's I haven't looked into this. Maybe in the paid version there's a journalistic version that you can get. And then the customization is probably a key part of it, because obviously it is, people want to make money out of ChatGPT and access to the likes of APIs, which Jill could probably explain better than me, but it's just a way of making one system speak to another, to make it work with the likes of chatbots, etc. You need to be aware of in terms of the free versus the paid version. So the other thing is it may generate inappropriate or insensitive responses. So just be careful about that, especially if you're dealing with sort of emotional content or whatever. So in terms of it's not quite there in terms of the having that emotional intelligence, I think is how it's described, sort of thing. And you will sometimes get some quite funny outputs from it. So just to get started, I'm sure you've all found this, but create a free account and get chatting. You could do some really silly things with it as well, from a personal perspective. I don't know if this is useful, but I actually it was my uncle's birthday recently, and I put in some details about him and asked it to write a poem in the sort of style of Rabbie Burns, and it was talking about this uncle who lives in Aberdeen and who loves motorbikes and has a dog whose name's Bongo, and it wrote a whole, about 6 brilliant little hilarious sort of kind of bits of sort of poem for me. So you can do silly things, but I think I've outlined some of the really important things. But I think the silly things are quite good for getting used to it, and you can sort of play around with it. And then I've mentioned the AIPRM as well. So have a look at that and see in terms of the guidance that generates for you. So that was all I wanted to sort of cover for now. If I can find my stop share button, I will stop sharing. The only thing I was thinking of doing quickly was giving you, because I've given you a very sort of bite-size input into what it does, but I thought I could expand on maybe some of the practical areas. So if I can, like I said, it's quite hard to use the Zoom at the same time. So if I can, and I'm on two screens as well, so if I can try and share my screen. Right. Hopefully this is right. Can you see the Jill? Can you see the ChatGPT?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. So I just thought this was an interesting way of highlighting some of the areas that I was talking about. So we were working on a in partnership with a couple of organizations to develop a trade mission to Barbados, and we were creating a load of content. So this is what I'm saying about sort of the putting in your prompt for the chat GPT to output something. So I wanted a report because we're putting in an application for some funding, and I wanted a very quick sort of outline of that to sort of put in our listing for potential support for our outward trade mission. And this was it. It's just a I've highlighted some of the text in terms of trade opportunities for businesses to Barbados. Can you include economic data, profile of Barbados, GDP, just anything you think might be useful, basically, and you can limit it to a number of words as well. And it's a shame I wasn't confident. It was brilliant when it actually creates this for you. Bung that in and it'll think for 10 seconds. Actually, that's one thing to mention, actually, is it can get busy at certain times of the day, particularly sort of the crossover with the States. So sometimes you don't always get in, you have to kind of try again, and sometimes it's a bit slower. But anyway, this was some very, very good sort of data that it highlighted with really key sort of information as part of the ease of doing business, tax, key sectors, and the match between Scotland and Barbados. And then I asked it to tell, I'd forgotten to put in a bit about the sort of green sort of renewables part. So I wanted it to tell me a bit more about that, and it generated a whole section on the government policy. And then this was just for this purpose. I said, can you bullet point the highlights of the above information? And that created this sort of version. So this is showing how you can use it for research and data gathering. You can create a document or proposal, and you can also summarize. So there's three of the things that I'd mentioned before. And then you can move on from that. So, write a short, compelling listing for Eventbrite for an online event to launch it. And that's, I could pretty much cut and paste that into an Eventbrite listing in 2 seconds, basically. So what I did realize then that it was relating just to the green. What you do realize something is if you miss something out, you can go back and re-ask the question to include it. So I had copied the information that it generated above, but you can copy any information you want for it to generate new information, and that sort of created a new listing for Eventbrite. And I'd forgotten to mention that the first one was an online, and it was to promote a face-to-face mission sort of thing. So they see its response to that, and it wanted to add a note to that effect. But you can go and get it to recreate the whole kind of content if you like. And then finally, I think final thing was just I thought, well, what about generating 5 posts on LinkedIn? I didn't give it loads of information in terms of tagging and what have you. That there's maybe an element of that you do for yourself. But again, if you just want a quick, as I said, create 5 sort of posts on LinkedIn to promote the launch event and trade mission, and it just gave us these. So they're actually practical examples of how we sort of, or how I've used the ChatGPT for time saving and to use some, you know, real life or real business experiences. So hopefully that's, we're not, as I said, this is a very early stage, so we just wanted to give a little bit of an insight. If there's a few things there that you haven't thought of, that's fantastic. And one of the reasons this came about was sort of due to sort of conversations between myself and Jill about how fast this is moving and how it has sort of more web and online applications. So at this point, I think it'd be ideal to pass over to Jill to chat a bit more. There was a bit of background noise, so I'm not sure if there's...
sorry, I switched off the mic for that person.
All right, is that you? Sorry, I thought it was... That's
no,
cool.
It wasn't me, it was somebody
All
else.
right, cool. Brilliant. Okay, thanks for that.
Cool.
So I'll pass over to you then, Jill, if that's okay.
No problem. Thanks, Damon. So that was a really helpful... well, it was actually pretty in-depth compared to what I thought was going to be. So I'm going to probably look at it from a slightly more practical and where we're going kind of way. So I'm just going to share my screen and I'll just kind of talk you through it. And the first thing is we kind of know what it is at the moment, and we know it was released in November 2022. So that's not that long ago. So if you start thinking about that, hold that in your brain. So that's really important to understand just how fast this thing is moving. Because we're maybe 6, 7, 8 months down the line, and things have really moved on since it started to become known about. So one of the things I wanted to just show you is I've pulled on my notes. I hope you can see that. But this was my notes that I wrote, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun if I just got it to write my talk for me? I tried to do that, and this is what it gave me, and it gave me a lovely talk, which was lovely and very kind of it. But what I discovered about it, that it, as Damon said, it has bias. So I have got some stuff in here about OpenAI used to be open source, and lots of different companies took that and ran with it. And so ChatGPT is not the only player in town, but Microsoft invested pretty heavily in it, and it's actually no longer open source. It is now kind of locked down. But it chose not to tell me that in the talk. So that's quite an interesting bias, and quite important to keep some of these things in mind when you're looking at it. And this is just my prompt. So it's not new. AI is not new. It's been around in search engines for years. We have it in all sorts of other places in our lives, like cars, etc. And the potential, as David says, is limitless. One of the great things that we could see it doing is working in robotic limbs, neural repair, the science fiction comes to life kind of stuff, lots of medical possibilities. In terms of using it, we've covered loads and loads of things here. We've got I've seen people use it to actually counsel or coach themselves. You can use it to write your elevator pitch or business slogan. And I actually know one of the chamber members who has done this. So I'm going to leave it to you to guess who was it when they tell you their elevator pitch, who used this to create it. You can use it to plan your holidays and things like that. The other thing you can use it for is policy docs. But as we've chatted around, so for example, if you were writing your privacy policy for your website in it, you've got to be really mindful of the 2021 cutoff point, because, for example, in the UK, there was at least 6 new privacy laws that became applicable to our websites at the beginning of the year. So you wouldn't necessarily have picked that up if you'd chosen to use it to write a privacy policy. So your privacy policy might not have been compliant. So again, always keeping these kind of things yeah, as Damon's mentioned, we can use it for optimization, for SEO, for ideation, talking to business about their niches and creation of content. So one of the things that I've used it for, and I wanted to talk to you about, because I think it might be quite helpful if you've got a website or you're writing content of any type. So I had a client who really struggled to produce relevant content that used the correct keywords for his business. So keywords are really the things that we plug into a search engine that when we're searching for something. And so when somebody puts something in, We want our website to be found because we have the most relevant content for their search. And basically the search engines are matchmakers and they do the matchmaking. So this chap has, or he does have summer houses, and he was trying to sell these buildings summer houses. So I wanted to write some blog for him. Again, all I'd said to this was write a blog of around 800 pages. Well, I meant words. So it didn't write 800 pages. So it obviously knew how stupid I was. On 5 benefits of having a summer house, using the keywords summer house, garden room, and garden office. And then it went away and it wrote a nice article. And I did this for a number of different things and created blogs out of that. Now, for this particular chap, what I did was I sent him these and I said, can you check these? Can you make sure they're okay? And then we'll put them on the web. Whether he did or not then becomes his responsibility. So if you're working with somebody who's generating content for you and they say, please check this, please do. Please check it. Because if you don't, you might find that you have some nonsense stuff out there. But it was very easy, and it did it within, I don't know, a few minutes. One of the other things that I did with it was one day I was transferring a website from one server to another, and I thought, I was daydreaming, you know, that way you daydream something. And I thought, oh, I'd really like to write a book. And I thought, I wonder if ChatGPT will write a book for me while I'm doing this. And so I plugged in some stuff. I wonder if I've got it here. I don't know where it is. Here it is. Yes. No, it's not here. Anyway, I plugged in some ideas about, and while my website was transferring across, it basically gave me a whole outline on a book. Okay. However, what's that? There we go. That's it there actually. So book outline, introduction, chapter 1 in the beginning, to the decision to expand. So you can do this. You can get a book outline. So if you've always had something in your, you know, your brain to write a book, and writing a book is a great way to create authority in your niche. So you can do that really quickly, and then you can write it up and package it and have it on your website basically to download. So it's one of the ways to generate authority. So that kind of comes into the problems that we can generate. So if Microsoft said that they detect 70 to 100 billion new URLs every day generated on the web. So how many of those are going to be authorities in their niche? How do you, if you're starting out or if you've had a website for a while, how do you become the trusted authority in that niche if you're up against all these people who are generating content? And these prompts that Damon showed are really useful as well. I think that, oh, it's about to kick me out. Oh no, it's wanting to install it. I've already got it. Never mind. I was going to show you some prompts. Anyway, they are really useful. They give you the idea that you want to, you know, how many words do you want to write? What is the tone? What is the style? What are the keywords you want to put in? And they will come out. So if everybody's doing that, how do you keep your stuff different? How do you become different from those like billions and billions of other websites out there? And I think that, you know, that is, you have to really think about why you are going to use these particular services, why you're going to use prompts. If they're all equally good, why would your customers use you? And one of the things is, if you use somebody in real life for services or products, then you'll probably use them for particular reasons that are not always necessarily connected to how good they are. So if all things are equal and two people are equally good, you're going to go for something a little bit above and beyond that. You're going to go for something about their personality, something about their uniqueness that appeals to you and how you want to use their services. It might be that they're friendlier. It might be that they're available at the particular times that you need. And all of these things are still true in the online world. So you have to convey your uniqueness in a way that actually the ChatGPT is not going to give for you. So it's a great base and a great starter, but you have to then go above and beyond that. That means it's going to be more important than ever for you to know and understand at a level what your unique selling point is. What is your culture within your business, and who are your audience, and how are you going to stand out and appeal to them? The other thing about AI is that it can do images as well, which has touched on. So this is a website, and some of you will know that recognize it as WordPress if any of you have a back end of a WordPress website. And this is using Bertha AI, which is an AI written actually by a friend of mine, and it's based on the chat, the OpenAI code base before it stopped being open. And Bertha does images. So what I did was I asked it to create an image of two birds with a lighthouse and the sea in the background. And this is a pretty good image. This is completely generated by the AI. There's no birds in it, which is okay, because sometimes the AI has a little bit of an issue with birds. So this was another example. And although I only asked for two birds, it's given some kind of scary bird flockingness going on. So it's a little bit weird. And this one down here is crash. This one, again, not too bad, but he's missed off the birds. And then this one here, again, the birds are scarily huge compared to the size of the. So there are still, now, the GPT-4 was when images started really to come into its own, and that was only out in about March. So this is how far we've come between March and May. And people are horrendous. So if you generate something with people, you might find they have like 25 fingers and 3 eyes and things like that. If that's where we are now, come back and check this in October, and you might be surprised to find that there is a lot better generation. And what that means is that when you're talking in your blogs, in your ad copy, in your website copy, it means that you can then match to really appropriate images, and you can start putting these together, and it will mean that your whole brand, your whole feel of your websites and the digital communication that you're putting out there will start to become a little bit more uniform and in line with what you want to communicate in the tone, and really hit the spot with it. So long as you keep in mind that obviously at the moment you still need to put that uniqueness of yourself on top. Don't just copy and paste. And I think that's something that came out again from what Damon was saying. Let's see. Yeah. So why should I do that? And if people are searching for something, why would they search in this rather than a search engine? And if that's true, if people are going to start using ChatGPT for searches, what does that mean for ads? If you're a company that is doing ads or working on your SEO to get found online, to generate leads and customers, what's that going to mean if people are going to move away from search engines and more into ChatGPT? I don't know is probably the shortest answer, and the search engines are not really saying. There was a chap from Microsoft that I heard a talk from who actually just said, not really prepared to talk about that right now. So but they know, and they have plans, and there is a change of what we call search intent. And what they think is that if you search in a search engine, you're actually looking to find a website to browse. If you're searching in ChatGPT, you're wanting the answer there and then. What does that mean for ads? I don't know, but what I think you might start seeing is more and more ads within the user interface at some very soon to be discovered point. The other thing is that it could change the landscape of search engines in general. At the moment, Google has been the major player for so long, but with Microsoft investing so heavily in ChatGPT, you might find that Bing starts to become a bigger player in that environment, because although Google do have their own AI chat thing going on, it's a little bit behind the curve at the moment. They will probably catch up. So it'll be interesting to watch. Keep your eyes open for what happens as these two big players start to go head to head. And in terms of where do you put your money as for your business right now, I would say that keep doing what you're doing in terms of if you're doing pay-per-click, keep doing that a little bit, but keep an eye on the returns you're getting. If those start to diminish, then start to look a little bit further, but keep your eye on this, because there will be new opportunities that are going to start to come out of this as that whole landscape shifts. So the other thing to remember is that this chat experience, you guys are ahead of the curve. You've come to this kind of talk. You're really interested in getting in there right at the beginning. Using this right now is really good. As more and more users start to come on, then it will start to change the experience. One of the things that will change, obviously, is it's AI. It'll start learning from more and more new people. So the whole experience will start becoming more and more sophisticated. The chap, the godfather, they call him the godfather of the AI stuff. Oh, I'm trying to feel Jeffrey Hinton. He worked for Google and he quit so that he could speak up about this, because he's worried about really the sort of the nightmare scenario when the robots come and they're more intelligent than us. And there is that kind of fear sometimes about that whole iRobot thing happening in real life, and it possibly could have. So there will be regulation that starts to come into this. And the problem is that the people in power don't necessarily understand what this is doing. They don't understand what we're doing in terms of marketing, in terms of content generation. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. AI will improve. We'll get more tools for building into our website. So this one that I'm doing, you can see that this is actually directly in WordPress. So I can click on Bertha here and I can get access to it. And there's some templates here that you can use to get you going. You can write some web copy, you can write your unique value proposition, for example. But again, you've got to really temper this with bringing your personality, bringing your values, bringing yourself into it. But these will all get more and more important. And you can see that the model this company have used is that they have given some sectors premium, so you have to pay to play in some of them, but they do give some for free. And that's something you're going to see more and more of. We'll start having to pay for it, or there'll be more ads in it. Yeah, think about these as training wheels. Think about these as helps to get you started. But always look forward to start doing this on your own. Start thinking about how you phrase the questions. Get used to it. In 2019, hardly anybody knew how to sophisticatedly search Google for things. Now we are absolute experts in how we search for things. We use much longer keywords. We use, we don't just say dentist in Glasgow. We look for dentists who are good with fearful people in the West End of Glasgow who have been in business for 10 years and have 5-star reviews in Google, because we want the best dentists. We don't just want any old dentist. We know how to search Google now. And the same thing is going to happen with this. Educate yourself on how to search really with intent, practice, play around with it, try it out, experiment in your business about what works and what doesn't. And don't worry too much about your job, because although some things will be automated and things like, I don't know, accountancy, there are certain aspects of accountancy that can certainly be automated and probably are already. But there are aspects of accountancy that will always be important, the business advice sort of side of it. Again, my job in terms of it is already possible to generate a whole website just by feeding the prompts into ChatGPT. It is possible to do that, and it will generate your pages, it will generate your images, it will generate your content. It will not do it particularly well, but at the moment it is still possible to do that. And that is, again, that's another area. So WordPress is probably the biggest CMS that is used worldwide. Somebody is going to plug this in to some kind of AI very, very soon and start generating it. However, I'm not afraid of that, because it will never take away the top level advice, the asking the right questions, me coming and saying, asking the right questions of you, of what are your goals with your website? What is your marketing plan? How are we going to put these together? Where is the strategy that we're going to use? Those kind of things are probably not going to go away very fast. And I think that's probably your take home from this is, don't throw everything out and just blindly head into this. And I think I've probably stressed that too much now. And I think that's really all I want to say. If somebody wants to have a chat, it's overall great. I love talking about it. I love to.
Thanks, Jill. It's a good insight into the digital world and the way things are going. I guess the key thing there that sort of relates to a little bit of what I was talking about was, one of the things I always hear from businesses is they sometimes know what they should be doing and they don't do it because they haven't got the time. So these sort of relatively simple, that when they're not involved, we're not creating a whole load of a new website from it, sort of thing, but we might want to create a bit of content. I think that was one of the examples you used, Jill. It's brilliant for that, and it's probably the difference between a lot of small businesses doing it or not doing it. So I think those things, and as well as the list of practical areas that I went over earlier, are things that it can work for. And just to reiterate, make sure you do a wee bit of checking, and don't sort of don't blindly follow, but sort of make sure there's nothing that's going to trip you up in that. Interesting to see that Virginie's on, because for one of our wonderful members, she was asking about terms and conditions, and I actually did a wee test with it on terms and conditions for a services business in Scotland, and it was a pretty good go at it, I have to say. And I've got my cousin's a lawyer corporate lawyer in London, and they're already using AI to take on some of their some of the tasks that they can do in those terms. So that's definitely a direction of travel, and there's definitely loads of things that you can already do to save yourself time and make yourself more productive. So I'm going to come to questions, but just very quickly, if I can find my screen share, find the right one. Can you see that, Jill?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was the it's not very catchy. ChatGPT and AIPRM are not very catchy, I'm afraid. They could have thought about I think it was called Turbo before. Anyway, this is just the example of some of the prompts which I was advising. I think you were trying to look for, Jill, but
yeah, thanks for that.
These are really useful. So there's loads of there's keyword strategy there. There's something you mentioned, right? Complete book in one click. There's real shortcuts in that. So I would advise having a look at that. YouTube script creator. These are things that most businesses will never get around to, and they won't do it. So there's some real opportunities to use this as it is for sort of improving your business. Yeah, that's just thought I'd show you that, so you could I could convince you to go down that rabbit hole if you haven't already done so. But yeah, I mean, I think has anyone got any questions for myself or Jill before we sort of wrap things up? I think there's some in the chat. Is that for example, Michael? Yes, how much checking do you do, for example, on stats, population, GDP? I think it depends on, that was one of my ones. I think it depends on who you're submitting it to and what the purpose is. You can get away knowing having written blogs that can be sort of you're not going to have the editor of the Times or a funder checking it. You can take a view in term. You just need to take a view on how important it is, and if it can be picked up by a funder, partner, whatever. So there is a level of trying to get that information from maybe you probably do default to Google to get a kind of trusted resource for that one. I can't remember, Jill, do you know if there's a way of, because this is where it starts to come into the sort of plagiarism and fact checking side of things, but do you know if there's a way of checking the sources from ChatGPT so that you could see where it's drawn from?
I don't think there's an automatic source checker. I think you would have to check your sources independently, and I think that's good practice anyway, because using the thing that generated the thing to check if it's said the right thing is probably not sensible. The other thing about the plagiarism detectors are they don't actually work as currently. We're starting to see that in the news stories of little kiddies of being accused of plagiarism when their mummy watched them write the thing, and and I've had things that I generated completely with ChatGPT, and I've checked it through the tools, and it says it's 100% human. So they're just don't work. So
I think they probably will get more sophisticated, because exam boards, are going to have to find out, and these systems, and they'll probably charge education, authorities to use them, because it will be an income stream. It will be the AI guys that develop them, I would reckon, sort of thing. So some good chat in the. I think Virginie mentioned that the data up to the information it's learning is up to 2021. So again, like you said on that, just check that it's getting the most up-to-date data. Yes, a good point about the images as well. So some good use there. Is there anyone else? I can't see any hands up or any further information in the chat for function. Is there anyone else? Anyone that I'm missing, or just if I can't see you, just shout out. Otherwise, I think
I'd be interested to know how many of you are already using this. Have any of you already had a go?
Yeah, I use it quite a lot. Usually, sorry, I'm just keeping my video off because my connection's a bit unstable and it goes a bit funny every now and then. So yeah, no, I've used it quite a lot since kind of the December, January, I think.
Yeah.
I was already using a different system, AI called Write Sonic, to help me with my blogs and things like that. And writing sales page, kind of coming up with titles just to get some inspiration, kind of going over the writer's block mostly. But that was obviously different because it's not as flexible as ChatGPT, where you can't really have a conversation like saying rewrite this bit or expand on this. And so I've been using it quite a lot. I've just downloaded this. We'll just put the extension and AIPRM on it. So need to have a play about with this. That looks quite good.
Yeah.
And then I was just, like I was saying in the chat, I've been using obviously our sister site, or whatever you want to call it, DALL-E, for the images for the new website that I've built at the start of the year. But I didn't want any things like not as photo as such. I wanted more something that looked like doodles with specific colors. So that worked out really well.
Yeah.
Good. So we can always. It's great to hear that people are already at that level with it, and there's some interesting stuff in the chat as well.
Michael's just talked about using it to write emails, and that was something I meant to say earlier, is that because Microsoft have invested in this quite heavily, what you'll possibly start to see is AI integrated in your Word and your Excel and your things like that. So it'll start becoming integrated in all the normal user apps that you would use. So it'll start becoming much more ubiquitous.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everyone's sort of mentioning I think people always struggle with the, Jill, you're an expert in this, but you want to build websites in terms of the sort of you know, what you do, and many small businesses can't afford someone to write their content. So this is something that's really interesting to for people to be able to write valuable content with, that has the keywords, and is optimized for our current, you know, particularly for sort of Google search and what have you, because that's something that I don't think gets done by a lot of small businesses, because they have that fear and the knowledge gap. So I think that's something I really highlighted on, is filling that knowledge gap and freeing up that time, because it may take 2 minutes and then a bit of rewriting, and it's really good to hear that people are just tweaking it, you know, once they've generated the information, because I think both Jill and I have mentioned the need to have a bit of human intervention.
Yeah, and you can use it to find keywords that you've not thought of as well. So if you put in the ones that you've thought of, what you think people might search for, and then it will generate some more. It's that whole idea generation, you know, so it can really expand what you're writing about.
Yeah. So yeah, so you mentioned some of the future, and Michael's putting in some of the future. My head's going to explode if I even start thinking about what this is going to do, and so I'm kind of thinking, I'm going to put a sort of mental block on the future for this. Of course, you might need to prepare for the things like the way that the search engines and what have you are going, but in terms of other areas, it's just unlimited, and it, you know, it blows your mind when you hear about some of the areas that are going to be either, you know, automated or sort of, you know, like you said, you know, pretty much anything in well, like I said, don't like to think about it too much, but pretty much anything you could automate is likely to be automated.
Yeah.
In the future is the reality, either through sort of digital terms, in terms of the whether it is, I don't know if we'll even call it online. It'll probably just be an immersive thing, you know, you just put your glasses on, or something that you stick in your ear, and you know, we'll do away with computers and what have you in the format that they're like. But yeah, pretty much anything that you can automate, and it's interesting to hear that a corporate lawyer is starting to move a lot of their business in that direction as well. You know, these people who are at the top of the you know, the professionals like doctors and lawyers, they're not going to need hardly nearly as many of, you know, humans to be doing that work. Why would you, when you've got a knowledge base of you know, when you can get access to billions of bits of information to get your an intelligent solution to it? You know, that is the way it's going, and it's interesting they're not pushing back against it, they're embracing it and moving in that direction. But anyway, I think yeah, it will be mind-blowing, but I guess what I want to reiterate is there's amazing opportunities for businesses here to solve that problem of not enough time, not enough skills, and we knowledge gaps. And it's great, actually, you know, because what I would say about it is filling the knowledge gap, you get the knowledge, you know, quite often as well. So it does that as well. So I don't know if there's anything you want to round off with, Jill.
No, I just say, you know, investigate it, play with it, but remember, you know, who you are and what your business does, and don't lose sight of your uniqueness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that is kind of to finish on, I guess, with my marketing head. It's one of the most important USPs, because there's only one of you. So if you're able to position yourself within your business as a personality, as an individual, you know, that will be your USP, because the other bits are going to be automated and are going to be online. So adding that, you know, potentially personality or point of difference for your business is the key thing that I say it won't ever, but certainly for now, it's not going to be replaced anytime soon. So listen, guys, thanks so much for coming. It's been a really fascinating kind of conversation.